Hello and welcome to James Hollman, goalkeeper coach with Newport County. Thank you very much for your time and coming in to present around modern goalkeeping. And obviously, been at Newport a number of years now, but a huge amount of wealth within youth and senior football. So thank you for your time and looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you for the invitation, Rob. Appreciate it. Okay, so Rob's asked me to just give a little bit of an insight into my role at Newport. But I'll just give you a little bit of my background, so that'll give you a chuckle. It's about 5 stone ago. Left school 93, so YTS, turned pro, and I played semi-pro till about 2001. Started coaching in the community with Ipswich in 98 whilst I was still playing. That led to a role in the academy at Ipswich, and I ended up working in the evenings and weekends with Ipswich, and then during the day with Norwich City's academy, which then resulted in at the time, Rob Green and Andy Marshall approaching me to take their senior sessions. And that then led to my first senior job. Nigel Worthington gave me the job at Norwich. Did 7 years there. I did the tail end of the season at Cambridge, getting to the playoff final there with Jimmy Quinn. I then went back to Ipswich as senior goalie coach with Jim Magilton and later Roy Keane. I then left Ipswich. I managed to get a pre-season tour with Tottenham's under-18s, and whilst on that tour I got the phone call from Malky Mackay to come back to to South Wales and Cardiff for a very enjoyable time. After that I did have a spell or one tournament with the women's under-23s over in Norway, and then I went up to Scotland, did 2 years in Scotland with Ian Barraclough and later Mark McGee. Then I had the need to come back home, closer to home, to South Wales. So when Justin rung me, I jumped at the chance. I went to Northampton for a couple of years, and that led me all the way to Newport. And Michael Flynn, grateful to him for offering me the job, at what is a very good club. And I was closer to home, and now I'm working for James Rowbury. So that's my route to where I am now. So Rob's asked me to give you a little bit of an insight into what I do. So to give you some context, to go through the staff at the club. So we're relatively small staff. So we've got the manager, James Rowbury, assisted by Carl Sarant. You then got Jared Harvey and myself. We're responsible for set plays as well as implementing day-to-day stuff on the grass. We've got Mark O'Brien. Mark O'Brien had to retire because of a heart problem, but he's come to the club as an ambassador and player mentor, but he spends whenever we're on the grass, he's on the grass. So he's seen as a little bit of a coach and a mentor to the players. We're assisted by Grant Keller and Ryan Sheridan in the analyst department. We don't see much of Grant. He's out looking at the opposition, and he sends that digitally to Ryan, and Ryan translates it for me. They're assisted by an intern. Medical department, 2 great guys, Tom Gittos and Lewis Binns, and they're assisted by, another intern. And then we've got the sort of kit and logistics with Neil and Callum. So if you take away, say, the analyst department, the interns, we've got a relatively small group of staff, and we do a lot of stuff away from the football side as well. Keep the logistics and keep the club or the football side running, but beyond the football. Like travel arrangements. I mean, I was responsible for refreshments at home games, getting water for the players, all that sort of stuff. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on, but we're a close bunch, and it's an enjoyable place to work. So, I mean, what I didn't want to do was to sort of give you a diary of my game day +1 or -2 and all that. So I just give you a brief oversight of sort of my week, and then go into sort of something more specific. So a general week for me, goalkeeper specific, obviously review previous games with the goalkeepers, and then plan their weeks in terms of their development and preparation. So that would be technical, tactical, physical, psychological, and lifestyle, and the short, medium, and long-term goals, and how they fit in for each individual. So I've got 2 senior goalkeepers in Nick Townsend and Joe Day, well established, and then I've got Evan Ovendale, who's just signed his professional contract. So we've all got their different level of needs in different areas. So I just plan the week according to what they are. Say I'm responsible for the defensive set plays, so I'll review the previous game, and we will analyze that and feedback to the players if necessary. And then a large chunk of my time is taken up in watching the opposition and their attacking set plays. And then we'll plan and organise us and how we're going to set up for the next game. And I'll go into that as much as I can without giving too much away a bit later. And then, of course, we've got the wider role, involvement in staff meetings, obviously, but then input into all football matters, sessions and delivering on the grass. And I think, having done my A licence recently in the summer, there's a big emphasis on, you're not pigeonholed as a goalkeeper coach, you're an assistant coach. And James Robury, the manager, is sort of on board with that and considers me a coach and an assistant coach. So brilliant for my own development and being in an environment where that's sort of consistent with the wider side of the game. So that's my general kind of role. But what I wanted to focus on was something we had to deal with relatively recently, was the change of rules around being able to take your goal kicks within the 18-yard box. So Michael Flynn introduced this and James has continued it on, but I just want to take you through the process and what I evaluated when we first decided that this was going to be the way we were going to play. Preparing for greater involvement in the building phase, as we called it. So what we're going to be, the expectations, what will we be expected to do? Well, it's a given. We're going to take, when it's right to do so, we're going to take goal kicks short. And the video at the bottom there's just an example. Now, no one's pressing against us, but that was an example of how we were going to play. As the season progressed, people started to push 3 up against us and cause us a problem. But how are we going to do that, and what is expected thereafter? So how we were going to take our goal kicks, I'm not going to go into too much about that for obvious reasons. But what we did know was that, we were going to be involved directly after the goal kick, and then there would be an expectation from us in open play. So the great expectation would be to support play. We are going to be expected to be in positions where we can receive the ball and retain possession. A greater expectation, obviously, to retain possession. It's just long gone now, but we are not, going to have the excuse of, well, I was under pressure, I'm going to kick it out the park or pump it up the field. We are going to be expected to understand where to be, how to receive the ball, and how to release the ball so we can retain possession of it. We're going to be used to switch play. That example there, that's been hooked from the right fullback. Plenty of space, but he dealt with a difficult ball under no pressure. But it's an example of, we are going to be expected to receive the ball and play out the other way. And also, again, touching again on just smashing the ball upfield, we're going to be expected to not just kick it clear. That will be the case on occasions, but when possible, can we give us the best chance of retaining possession or causing the opposition a problem? So we flipped that over as well and said, well, there's a greater expectation on the team. So, it's a two-way street. So they're going to be expected to trust us on the ball, right? Obviously, we're going to have to convince them of that, and we're going to have to build up a trust and a relationship. Appreciation of pass. So say there is a need to do it, and occasionally there is the odd player who just goes, I can't deal with it, send it back to the goalkeeper. And I say that the team, the way we're set up now, I've got a good appreciation of passing back to the keeper, accepting us as being able to play, and not saying, well, you deal with it and kick it up the pitch. Again, there are going to be situations where that happens, but more often than not, the pass appreciation has been good. Looking to help us to gain a bit of space. So blocking runners, anyone closing us down, have we got opportunities to block runs so we get more space? And then work rate off the ball. So we see the right side centre half there working out, say perhaps not the greatest example, but you can see him working out there to be available, not going and standing behind players. So we looked at that as the kind of the things to focus on. So what would be the specifics that we can look at to give us the best chance of success? Well, the first thing we talked about was physical. I'm not going to touch too much on it, but if we're going to be expected to cover ground, be out of the width of the goal, get to places quickly, we probably need to be maybe a bit lighter in some cases and a bit quicker around the goal mouth to be able to go and take up those positions. Technically, we're going to have to improve touch and control, range of passing, and ability with the non-dominant foot. If we're going to support play, we're going to have to support play on both sides of the pitch equally. Tactical, so support positions, the movement and timing into those positions, then looking at the pace and direction of passes to retain possession, target areas when distributing, and then a collective understanding of the whole team of how we're going to operate in those situations. And this was the biggest one for me, psychological. Belief, confidence and trust in ourselves that we can do it, in our team, that they are going to support us. They're going to be in positions where if we do have a touch, we've got options to distribute the ball. And then also, building that chemistry with the team, that they've got trust and confidence in us to do it. So with that in mind, the considerations in training, technical, that straight away, there was a greater emphasis on the ability with the feet in GK sessions. I think it's fair to say there was already a quite strong sway towards that anyway, because we felt that there were people in the group that needed to develop that. But all of a sudden it became like, this is vital. This has got to be put in place. So from warm-ups, the majority of my warm-ups and early parts of my sessions became all about the feet. If we then ended up needing to top up on the traditional goalkeeping, we'd allow time after sessions for that. But one of the things with Newport is that we don't own a training facility. We have to book pitches. So we had to be very, very conscious of our time management. But that's a different subject for a different day. So with regard to touch and passing, the first thing I did was working into tighter spaces and put more emphasis on making sure the first touch is where you want it to go. So, previously it was slightly more relaxed. We'd play the ball into the goalkeeper. He'd have a touch. It might go at the right place, it might not, but generally have time to have a second touch and release the ball. Now we're really nailing down that the first touch, where possible, has got to be where you want it. And it's not a decision-making thing, it's just a technical thing. So we was working in tighter spaces. We were looking at body position when receiving, scanning. So no decisions to make in terms of a technical practice, but we're always encouraging them to turn their heads and focus on where the ball's going, where it's come from, where it's heading next. Breaking lines as well, brave with their touches. So the traditional kind of leave it, 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and then go and kick. And we're now looking to be more dominant. And I've got an example on it somewhere, I think, of, the way that we're going to play, we're going to be receiving the ball from deeper, and it'll be often the case that we're getting closed down from level with us or behind us. So if we can break the lines and we're getting closed down from behind, they can't tackle us, especially if it's they're coming from the standing leg side. So it was, understanding situations like that, putting practices in place where you're encouraging them, just be bold with your touches. Again, just variation, just high repetitive practices. And of course, dealing with the imperfect pass. Sometimes we will be an out ball, and as you've seen in the earlier demo, that Joe had to deal with a ball hooked back to him. So improving passing and the range of passing, short, medium, long, weight of pass, make the pass talk, leave it for him to hit first time. And this may sound quite basic, but in many respects, this is not something that was hugely dominant within the goalkeeping that we are used to in League Two. So it was really just sitting down with them and saying, look, these are the things we're going to look at. Direction of pass, playing it safe side. We're not playing at feet. So that chemistry of working within the teams, particularly in possessions of small-sided games, but I'll come on to that in a bit. Shape of the pass, we're curling it into space for them to run onto. And I did that in really simple, repetitive practices. And I'll show them in a minute. And I think you might be a little bit disappointed because it is just kicking a football, but I'll explain a little bit about the specifics within that. And then, of course, the non-dominant foot. So, we want to support play on both sides of the pitch equally. So one touch, angle of approach to the ball, it was crucial. We must be approaching the ball, and the timing of that approach were crucial for getting one touch. And I'm happy to say now that all the goalkeepers I work with have got the ability and the confidence to go two touch on their weaker side. They're happy to take the ball away from goal and have got the ability to clip it into a decent area, either retaining possession or causing a problem. So tactical changes. There was an increased involvement in team practices and greater emphasis on football, and what we so training drills. we still get it now. Don't get the keepers in the passing drills. They mess it up. Well, not anymore. Certainly with what I've got. So, and what it does is that increase responsibility on every pass. Keep the tempo of the session going. Don't be the one to break it down. So we like to get them involved in that as when we can. Now, possession practices are probably the most important thing for the goalkeepers I work with. So we use them on the ends. They're working through like 180 degrees, pretty much like they would do in goal. And then we put rules in to suit both the practice and the goalkeepers in there. So, for example, when the ball gets played to them on the outside, are they one touch? Are they two touch? Are they unlimited touches? Can the opposition go in and close them down? And then on the rewards side, if you manage to switch play, if you manage to bounce it off a defender and then hit the goalkeeper at the other end, I mean, the options are endless. And, we could talk about it for a long time, but, making sure that those rules and stipulations within those practices suit the goalkeepers and the practices is vital. And that's where, the meetings we have before training are crucial to get them into a practice that gives them the confidence, develops their ability. And I think particularly the sessions we've done with Jared and James have been good for that. So yeah, we've progressed, but small-sided games, we all like a small-sided game. And say the one thing that kind of adapted to that was, if your team score, the goalkeeper on the team that scored gets the ball back in his hands. Well, occasionally we'll do it that he has to get it with his feet. So he can't just get the ball and keep the flow of the session as such. You can't lift it into a striker from his hands. No, you're getting it with your feet and you're going to play, and you're probably going to get it back. So just support positions within that, just constant reinforcement. And again, in the small-sided games, it's in those tighter areas where they have to make quick decisions. Say it's been encouraged a lot, and so the three goalkeepers I've got have certainly improved. And well, happy with what they're doing. So, and then we go into the phases of playing 8v8, 9v9, 11v11s, and that's really where the manager comes into his own. We will take these sessions and paint clear pictures as to what is expected. If you get the ball back in this position, this will be your next pass. So that realistically, it is. We've got the goalkeepers to a position in terms of ability and understanding where they can go into these types of team practices and perform. So we've been happy with that. So match specific decision making. So just examples of the sessions. So I won't let these drag on too much, but simple. This is a warm up. This is the first thing the lads have done. So this is a very simple practice. Touch back the way it's come. He's already done that on the first one. Now he's going to have a touch through the next gap. Doesn't quite get it right around the corner. So just really lots of touches with the feet, working on getting those touches there. Got that one right through the gap, and little things within that, like not receiving the ball while static is a big one for me. I'm going to be on the move, and I'll be after the touch as soon as it's left my foot. Very, very basic. So I said I'd probably bore you with this, and that would progress into a practice like this. So again, this is pure technical work. One touch, weaker foot on this example. Goalkeepers on the outside will always, when possible, use or not use their hands. So they're working as well. And this is one option where they're bouncing the ball off me on the edge of the box. We change that where they've just got to switch it straight out the other side, and you get the picture. But without being facetious, that's probably the session plan. And you could pick up those lines and throw them down again, and that would be the session plan again. Obviously, we've got trends, and there are passes we'll play more often than others. But to describe that, we are going to practice kicking from anywhere in and around the 18-yard box to any location on the pitch. And we're going to paint pictures where, right, there's no one in between you and the target. You've got to lift it over people. You've got to bend it round people. So just really high repetition practice of that. And we would do that probably every training day. And the key thing that we worked on, because I say we were retaining possession, we were receiving back passes, and expected, not just to kick it straight up the middle of the pitch. So this was the theory that I used. So if you take a line from the target to the ball and then beyond the ball, so you end up with a triangle. So the position of the ball, the position of the goalkeeper ready to approach the football, and then his distance from the trajectory line of the ball, you create a triangle essentially. And what we're trying to do is to get the goalkeepers to visualize this. So whether it be a goal kick or create on a first touch or second touch, sorry, whatever happens in that black circle there, the bubble as we call it, it's like golf really, you know, for those who play golf or whatnot. If you're like me, I visualize this fantastic shot hitting the green, and then I visualize that as I'm swinging the club and forget about what it is that I need to do. So they say the theory is that we work on these distances A and B every time, and the approach is the same every time, will be successful. So the process is target selected, time assessed if it's a back pass, touch creates the triangle, or you adjust to create it, head down, kick. And that was the kind of trigger there, touch, triangle, trigger. And there's just a couple of examples here. Yeah, that first one, that might have gone first time a few years ago. Good touch away from the striker, create the triangle, head down. Out of his goal, not a great touch. Adjust the triangle, strike. Just so you can sort of visualize this in practice. Touch, down, adjust the feet. So that was, say, just to highlight, you know, it isn't just a kicking session. It isn't just people smashing balls across a pitch. There are key elements to it that you don't always see. And I just tried to describe that there. Now, this is an example of a possession session. So it's an overload, and it's decent for the goalkeepers. I haven't actually got any footage of it, unfortunately, but you can see there. So it's a 7v7 in the middle. Two whites on the outside would make that a 9v7. And then if you include the goalkeeper on the ball, 10, and the goalkeeper at the other end could become as a striker, it makes it 11v7. But it's a heavy overload. But if you was to think that the goalkeeper on the ball now plays it out there, he's pretty much out of the picture because we're trying to go the other way, and the guy on the opposite side is out of the way. So it's 11v7 essentially. Sorry, it's a 9v7. So we're looking again, just rewards for the goalkeeper. Can you switch play? Can you look to drop it into areas in here? And this is consistent with how we tried to play on a match day. 2 sevens. Can you look to go into the front man? Or can you look to get one of our pivots or holding midfielders out into a position where they can receive the ball? Just wanted to highlight kind of a few of the options within that. And I say it's quite a heavy overload, but in terms of the goalkeeper, there are clear options there. And for I said the stage we were at, that was perfect for them in that they could have a clear picture of the options that are available and then practice them. And of course, once we go into 11v11 practices, hopefully the development work that's been done in sessions like this comes to the fore, and they can pick out the options. And that was that for the for say that particular issue we had to deal with, not issue, the change in play that we had to deal with. My other role now, so since James came in and Wayne Hatswell left, the set plays have been divvied up. So Jared's on the attack and I'm on the defending. And thankful that the manager has allowed me to show you a presentation I did during the season with 1 or 2 changes so we don't expose ourselves. So what you're going to see is a kind of a little bit of a breakdown. In this case, everything you see now is what I showed the team on the day. We'll say with a couple of changes, but I might not always show things like this, for example. So I will take the information from the analysts, but I also like to watch the corners. In some cases, I've gone back to like 100 corners to try and pick up if they work blocks, if they've got any routines, whatnot. And I look for trends. I mean, this is Colchester. The interesting thing about Colchester is that they've, over their last 60 corners, 59 have been taken by these 2 are right-footed. And over their last 100 corners, 98 were taken by right-footed players. So immediately you're thinking, well, that there must be some sort of trend here. And there was. So they were the 3 main deliveries, heavily weighted to these. There were a couple of exceptions, but these were the 3 that they had. This was the way they set up. There was either 2 out and 5 in, or 1 out, 6 in. And they had a clear routine. So 2 hands from our left, their right footer. This was getting driven to the far post. And they would have runners from the near spin out or runners late from the edge. And 63% of their corners did that. And here's a couple of examples. So there's a signal with the 2 hands. Catches eyes, driven. I think that's Tom Eastman coming in at the far post there. The other thing a lot of teams do is they have routines for first and second corners. First corners of the first half, first corners of the second half, even left and right. So on this one, they worked a block, which is 17, holds off Dallason's man, he gets a free header. This one, see Smith, the 5, spins to the far post. It's a block for Smith again. There goes Smith on the run, comes around to the far post, gets a free header back across. So we're just looking for little trends like that, and then that allows us to maybe set up in a way or prepare them for what to expect. 37%. You see the number 10, single hand in the air, little change of approach of angle, and every time they did this, the ball went into that near post area like this. He's made the signal before his approach, which is out of the video, and they look to get runners across there. He starts with 2 hands, then he goes to 1 hand. I think Bristol do quite well with that. I think they were prepared. And these were the first corners. So they work a block here. What's the 4? The other man, you'll show you a slow motion replay. There at 17, just steps across the 5. Chambers gets clear, first contact. This is their first corner. Wait, Stevenage. Sorry, Harrogate. This is my mistake. Disrupt the near post, look to try and get in there. On the opposite side, 93% of their corners did this. In swinging, near post, they look to free up men, disrupt that near post area. Again, 1 hand, same on as the other side. 1 hand, it's going near post, 2 going to the far. They look to get those runners across the front. Here you go, and they get a bit of joy off that one. And these are the first corners. With the first corners, it's sometimes difficult because the camera angle doesn't always reveal what's going on. But clearly in this one, they've loaded the near post there. This is classic League 2. Just in swing it under the bar. This one, they bump the near post marker. You see it in slow motion here. It works quite well for them, this one. The guy off the keeper, there he is. He bumps him out of the way. And then potentially they create a bit of space to free that up. Again, classic League 2. Just chuck it under the bar. See what happens. We came across that a few times, particularly against Sutton. When we played Sutton, we looked at their trends. 93% of their corners at home are in swing and put into the 6-yard box. No routines, nothing elaborate. They're a big physical team and they were getting joy from it. So there's more examples. So we look for sort of variations. So they look for the flick at the near post. But on this one, what we spot is you watch Scoose 8 at the bottom of the screen. And they've done it 2 or 3 times. This time 16. Makes his run in late from the edge of the box. So it's just to highlight examples of what we could expect. And that can help me to try and set the team up to defend it and also make the lads aware of what they might face, because ultimately, as Wayne Hatswell would constantly remind me, you know what, Jim, if they don't want to edit, then we got a problem. So last example of it with 2 hands, let's say this was 1 corner, I think, in the 100 odd that I looked at, where they did the reverse on the other side. So the taker, 2 hands in the air, they've loaded the far post, and then it goes up into the back stick. Also like to highlight the short corners. In this case, I think they were all off the cuff. There wasn't any routines here, but you see against Stevenage, they've only sent 1 out. They've had an inclination to do it. Nothing comes of it. This was worked. This is one that worked. This is away at Harrogate. It's the first corner. So that's Freddie Sears coming off the goalkeeper. Again, it's quite elaborate, but the end result in many of these that we, throughout the season, every team, some would say, you might as well just sling it in the box. First corner, second half against Northampton, set back. So you might as well sling it in the box. The reason we got to tick box, you've got to show that, because it might be one where we're not aware to it. You know, we get caught out and then it comes back to me. So we've got to highlight all these things. So with regard to our setup, now I've removed a lot of stuff on here because obviously I don't want to give too much away. So in swinging from our right, we just encourage the near zone man just to drop in a little bit, and the central man come forward just ever so much, just to cover that area. If it was two hands, we'd maybe adjust it slightly. Like I say, there's other bits and pieces going on here which would offset what those two have done, but I don't want to share that. With the opposite side, the right foot out swinger, so the near zone, he would come higher and 2 yards beyond the far post. And likewise, if it went to two hands and it's going to be driven to the middle zone, we'd encourage him to drop off into that zone there. That was really as simple as that. We also, with Colchester, saw trains with their free kick we felt we might have to deal with. So they, deep free kicks, they would try and isolate one of their big hitters. There's Tommy Smith, I think, freed up, headed back across goal. This one, you got Eastman at the top of the screen. They try and drive it across to him, and he's going to look to try and get it back across, as Smith did. Bit straighter this one, Akindi. There he is, heading it back across. And again, how they get that, I don't know, but problem. And last one, Dallison. Now, this was potentially going to be an issue for us. I'll share this. So our right fullback is good in the air. He's a big lad, so we didn't feel a problem. But if we went the other side, so we said, because not necessarily marking as such, we're not sure who's coming up. But if they do set up with that, looking to isolate one, we're encouraging the centre half to come outside and the fullback to come inside to pick up and deal with the first ball. And that would be the presentation. And then so those would be printed off and put on in the change room wall, constant reminders before the game, and then over to you. And like I said, you know, we try and set them up, give them as much information as possible, but ultimately they've got to go and defend it. You know, we try and help them and point out they're going to do this, going to do that, watch the block. This is how we're going to set up. I mean, for one example of that as a specific, I think it was Bradford. Bradford did the bus stop. So they would line up in a straight line on the penalty spot. And some teams would kind of mirror that with a bus stop of their own. So the reason for that is that if their man goes to the far post, they can go. If he goes to the near post, they can go. What we noticed was that they would set up and the two at the top of the bus stop would always go to the near post. So we said to our guys, if you're marking them two, don't go in a mirror them, go flat, go to the near post zone, because they're only going to go there. Yeah, so just to highlight sort of things that I look for and try and give to the players to help us, defend the set plays. But that's that. I hope that was a useful insight and you've taken something from it.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much for your time on that one. No, a lot of good detail in there. There's obviously becoming fruition with a team as well. And it's good to see them on goalkeeping that it's gone now where a goalkeeper coach is the goalkeeper coach and that's it. And yes, okay, then goalkeeper coach is your first job sort of thing. But then it's also the other areas and how you build into it.
Yeah.
How do you find yourself doing more with units and team as well because of the build-up change? Do you find yourself working with some of the players or?
I think not so much in terms of organisation and sort of taking sessions on the grass, but certainly input before sessions and feedback and review. And then also the manager is happy for me to step in and talk to individuals. And, you know, obviously he doesn't like me stopping sessions, but you know, when there's breaks in play, he's happy for me to pull, say, units in and individuals in and just sort of the finer detail as such on things from our point of view as goalkeepers and so general defending. But also at the other end of the pitch, you know, what strikers quite often come to the goalkeeper, go, what's going to cause you a problem? You know, what should I do here? What should I do? What's the best way to beat you? And we always tell them to go away.
Too much away, but yeah, sometimes as you say, you might look at the opposition goalkeepers as well at times and give them information as well. So okay, good. No, thank you very much for your help, and thank you very much for your time, and certainly wish you all the best for next season as well.
Thank you very much, Rob. So I appreciate the opportunity to do it, and it's hopes for people that enjoy listening.